Ho, ho, ho! Welcome back to Restless. I'm Father Joseph, but it's not Christmas yet. It's still Advent. 3 more days. And then the great holiday of Christmas comes up, and you've joined myself and Joe as we eagerly anticipate Christmas. Do you look forward to it as much as an adult as you did as a little kid?
No, I don't think anybody looks forward to Christmas as much as an adult as they do as a kid, do they?
Did you look forward to it a lot as a little kid?
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it's every good thing for a kid at once, right? You're out of school for a few weeks. You're seeing family and cousins and stuff. You're getting stuff. You're eating more food, cookies and whatnot. I mean, come on,
Yeah, that's kind of true. Yeah, it was all the good things.
And also, like as a kid, you don't have to buy anybody gifts, and so all the stress of the season,
that's true.
is not existent. You just I don't know. It seems fine to me.
That's true. You just have to draw them a card. And mom's happy,
Yeah, or like the classic, buy mom a gift with dad's money and vice versa.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. I wish I could do that now.
In your school growing up, did they have one of those like Santa's workshop things where little kids can bring in $2 and get some trinket?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
I definitely remember that.
There's ornaments were made at various points in my childhood at school. Cookies were baked and made into ornaments. I know we had them until recently.
Yes.
I remember I made these 20 years ago at this point. I painted a cookie. So you think we should throw it out at some point?
Probably still good. I don't know. No, I remember my favorite ornament that I made was in kindergarten, where we actually took paper and cut it out into gingerbread person shapes, and we filled it with potpourri. And so it smelled really good, and you put it on the tree and it smelled like potpourri, and it smelled like potpourri for 5 or 10 years, and then it doesn't, but we still put it on the tree anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
Definitely my favorite Christmas ornament memory. But, so often, of course, Christmas is, in the secular world, it's over on December 26th, but we as Christians believe Christmas continues. And that's the good news. So let's talk about some of the other things around Christmas, because we always share about our Christmas memories, but Christmas as it continues has a lot of incredible feasts this coming week. So for example, Feast of St. Stephen.
Yes.
Why in the world would they put the Feast of the First Bloody Martyr right after the Feast of the Birth of our Savior?
I have no idea. Why do they do that?
Wow, I kind of thought there was going to be a better answer.
Sorry.
I don't know. For me, I've always this is something I've always preached on, is that when Christ came, he came to open the gates of heaven, right? And so it's only fitting that that somebody should kind of storm those gates and enter and enter with his own blood, because Christ taking flesh means that our flesh can lay down its life for him, that our body has meaning, and our sacrificing our life has meaning.
Makes sense. I like it.
I don't know. Just throwing that one out there.
So Stephen, what day is that? 27th?
26th.
27th Holy Innocents?
No, 27th is the Feast of St. John, the Apostle.
Oh, okay. When's the Holy Innocents?
28th.
28th.
Yeah. So we have a lot. So let's talk about the Holy Innocents, right?
Yeah.
So in Holy Innocents, this is something I have always wrestled with. How can you call someone a martyr when they were too young to even...
I always heard the phrase proto-martyr as relates to the Holy Innocents. I don't know if that's...
Proto just means first, but...
Sure. Well, it's sort of... Yeah, but it has a connotation of unformed or semi almost. Like
a prototype.
Yeah.
First try.
Yeah. So, yeah, because they're not... classically think of a martyr as somebody who affirms the faith when asked to deny it under penalty of death and then takes that death, right? And so obviously that's not them. One of the kind of weird things I do is I try to pray thematically with, it's not weird, it's sort of what you're supposed to do, but pray thematically with what is going on in the life of the church. And so
sure.
I always try to spend some amount of the day praying for the unborn on the Feast of Holy Innocents. It's interesting that's it's all right, Merry Christmas, now it's an opportunity to pray for the unborn and pray for into abortion. It is sort of a strange time of year, but rather strange timing that it happens in this time of year. But maybe part of it is that we tend to have the Bambi version of Christmas. Christmas is just Jesus in a manger and it's and everything's
little
nice
kids in bathrobes, and their pageant and everything.
But I mean, that's not what it was like for the first family, for the Holy Family, right? So
we forget how gross that was. Have you ever tried to lay on straw?
Never my entire life.
No, you should try it sometime.
Nope.
I forgot. You're not a camping guy.
I mean, I've done hay rides.
Okay, so imagine making your bed on a hayride, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got bugs crawling on you. Sure. It is pokey. This is not like a nice, soft bed. And
then not to mention that they're immediately put to flight because of Herod. And there is something which is all right, we have now, one of the ways to sort of approach Advent spiritually is use it to pray for the coming of Jesus into our own lives, right? And the immediate reaction to Jesus entering into the world, right? He was in the world, but his own did not know him, is that the world rebels against him and Herod tries to kill him. The world, which is the political power of the time, Herod tries to kill him. So, And like that's also true about us. Like if we are taking Advent to prepare ourselves to welcome Christ into our lives in a more profound way, and that does happen on Christmas, we have to like there's this reality of Stephen's martyrdom, of the Holy Innocents, of like this is not going to be easy. There will be trials. The world's not happy that we're here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So maybe it's just good to remember that.
It's almost like I'm just coming up with this analogy on the spot, but you know how like when people get like a new heart implant or something, they have to make sure that their body doesn't reject it.
Yeah.
And like, why would the body reject? This is the best thing for it, to get a new heart or a new kidney or whatever it is. Sure. But the body's like, no, get out of here.
Yeah, it's antibody response. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of just the gut reaction, no pun intended, right? And that's the same thing. I mean, Christ came into the world, and the world's first reaction is, no, get out of here. You're not one of us. You're not like us.
Yeah, which is true. We're not like them.
Right. I mean, Christ, as John Paul II says, Christ reveals man to himself.
Right.
And in looking at him, we realize how far we've fallen from who we should be. And when you're faced with that reality, you have only two options. You can repent or you can rebel.
Yeah, like I think of was it the Magi who the story ends that they returned to their country by another way. And Bishop Barron makes the point that speaking of a conversion of heart, that anybody who truly goes to encounter Jesus and does encounter him goes back different, goes back changed.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I'm stolen from Bishop Barron.
Thank you. I might use that for my Epiphany homily this year.
Anytime.
That's good. Now, I don't know if you've paid attention to the recent canonization of the Ulma family.
Nope.
So there's a whole family that died protecting Jews in the Holocaust. I can't remember if they're Polish or German, but they died, and they canonized the parents, of course, and they canonized all the kids, including kids that were too young to really know what was going on, and they canonized the unborn child.
Great.
Of the mom, which I mean, I'm very pro-life, of course, right? So absolutely, an unborn child has a soul. Wasn't totally thrilled with that idea of the canonization of someone that isn't even out of utero. Because then by contrast, are you canonizing all of the aborted babies in the world, right? Because they kind of died as martyrs, if they, as it were.
It's interesting because not only is that sort of a novel approach to some extent, but it kind of flies in the face of what a lot of Catholics like kind of conjecture about the state of the souls of those who die without being born.
Right. I mean, the whole original sin thing, right? You need baptism. One might,
yes,
would make the argument.
But there's other baptisms than a sacramental baptism.
Baptism of blood.
Right.
Sure, and one might say that they suffered that.
Certainly sounds like if these people were Catholics who are doing these things and canonized, it sounds like they would have been baptized.
Oh, definitely, yeah. There's the baptism of desire too for the child, but
or for the parents, probably.
Yeah, from the parents to the child, kind of their will. I don't know. I would kind of wrestle with that and thinking of that with the Holy Innocents. Like, I think it's good to hold up children as models of holiness, definitely, because Christ says, unless you become like children, you cannot enter the kingdom of God in all the good ways that kids are good, But at the same time, I kind of wonder, like,
because
have we gone a little too far on that?
Sure, because it's sort of interesting. I'm just kind of thinking it through now, right? Because the whole thing is that angels don't learn discursively, right? So they have the opportunity. They're sort of like they receive all the information they need for salvation, and they make a decision in a moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's their moral decision for their entirety of their existence, right? So that's why there are fallen angels, because they rejected God in an instance, though, not like where we learn over time and we sin and we do better and and then hopefully over the course of a life we choose Him. Yeah. There is still a choice there.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to think about what does it mean to say someone is a saint who never offered any kind of fiat that we are aware of. But I think the most important part of that is that we're aware of. So like we don't really know. I mean, who knows? Maybe there is some way in which they offer some sort of fiat to God that we're not aware of.
Sure. Well, I've been rereading an amazing book called The Life of Mary According to the Mystics.
Okay.
Which is beautiful. It's just about some of the visions that Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich and Venerable Mary of Agreda and some different saints have seen, kind of the early life of Mary, and of course it's private revelation. But one of the things that they claim in that book is that Mary had the use of her reason from the moment of her birth, which I've heard. I've heard Christ, of course, had that too, right? That from right out of the womb, he knew what was going on. He had full consciousness. It's not, he wasn't just simply acting on instinct like most babies do. And so I would assume it's possible for God to give that gift to somebody that's below the age of reason, quote unquote, the gift of reason, to be able to make that choice maybe in an instant or for an instant. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. And also,
speculation.
I don't know how far along this child was. Do you know? that was canonized?
I mean, obviously it was far enough along that they knew the gender and they knew
because
that it was a baby. You know,
like life doesn't begin at birth. You know, and I don't just mean that this is obviously life, but what I mean is that a trauma therapist came to give a presentation to our seminary at the beginning of the semester, and she was saying that. She's actually really amazing stuff. Just the ways in which past traumas can really inhibit you, even physiologically now. But she was saying that she's had people who had no memory of any kind of trauma, but when asking family members if thus such or whatever had happened, family members would say, "Oh yeah, you did fall down a well when you were like 4 months old, and you were crying for like an hour until we found you." And it's like, well, you're claustrophobic. And so she was saying that even this pre-verbal trauma, and even I think I remember her saying something like, even prior to being born, you can kind of imbibe traumas from your mother or whatever. And so maybe on one hand, perhaps the extent to which the child is extricable from its mother, is not absolute. Like if the mother's making a fiat, perhaps somehow there's a trauma being built into that for the child that they're kind of processing or something like that. On the other hand, they are human beings with brains, even in the womb. And so I think all of this just to say that we don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of a mystery.
And it's a beautiful testament to the church's understanding that, again, we don't begin existing when we're born.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, somebody smarter than I, perhaps even smarter than you, must have looked at the Vatican to.
I don't know if there are any out there, but
it's hard to imagine. But hopefully, they found somebody to look at this in the Vatican. So,
well, but it's interesting that even the church doesn't officially define exactly at the moment of ensoulment. Yeah. Right, St. Thomas Aquinas speculated that ensoulment happened in what they call the quickening, right? When the baby started to move in the mother's womb. Mm-hmm. Now, and it does bring up questions when you talk about biology, like if you have a Siamese twin that doesn't split until a day later after conception, well, were there two souls in that one being?
It's funny. My cousin had twins last February, and he asked me this question. He said because it's one fertilized egg which splits, and so the answer was I certainly don't know.
Right. And that's why the church, even if ensoulment doesn't happen, life begins at conception. Period. Human life. It is a human life. It is a human being with human dignity.
Yeah, right.
So we don't know about the soul piece, but we always have to assume that the soul's there unless proven otherwise. So the fact that it is a living creature, there's some sort of spiritual reality that makes it alive. So I'm not in any way saying it's not, not worthy of protection from the first moment of conception. It definitely is.
Of course, yeah. But that's good though. I'm glad you brought that up. That's interesting.
So speculation, but connected to the Feast of the Holy Innocents coming up. But let's go back one day to the Feast of St. John, the Apostle. Mm-hmm. Now, some people wrestle with St. John because he calls himself the beloved disciple. Has that ever struck you as kind of abrasive, prideful?
It's just hilarious. This is awesome. It's how I would.
Jesus liked me first.
And then Jesus' favorite disciple said,
Yeah.
And there's the obvious one that everybody always laughs at of him recording that he ran to the tomb faster than Peter.
Right.
It's great.
And Peter's like, who's going to know?
Yeah.
John's like, everybody.
Yeah, every single person. Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny. I don't think it's it must be pointing to something important. I've heard speculation that John was perhaps a lot younger than the other apostles. And so he perhaps had a more, it's a different relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
I would think so because, leaning on someone's chest
is a
little awkward when you're 19 years old, which Jesus, John did at the Last Supper.
That's a beautiful image to pray with of just the closeness of John to Jesus.
Yeah. He could hear the Sacred Heart beating, and that's.
Yeah. But just it's an image that I really like. Last year in seminary, we were at this thing. It's football game, doesn't matter, but we're all in this box, and I look over, and one of the faculty members from the seminary was there with his family, and so one of our seminarians was all over this, and he had little kids, so he can I hold the baby? So I turn around, and this guy, he's talking to the father, and the baby's on his chest, sprawled out, face down, this guy's chest, head to the side, and I was just looking at it, and it's now this wasn't his father, but it's you've seen this, we've all seen this before, of a little baby on his father's chest. And there's so much trust there. The baby literally is rising and falling as the father breathes. There's just no distance or
no separation.
Them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there's something really beautiful about that. And so there's something maybe going on there with John and with Jesus, which ultimately is the posture we want vis-a-vis Jesus, right? Is childlike faith.
Yes, definitely. There's that mystical image of that union of soul and body, which I think that's why. St. Peter's always been seen as the institutional church, and St. John's always been seen as the mystical church.
Yeah.
in that St. John had that mystical insight. And even though he wasn't given the authority, of course he was as an apostle, but he wasn't given, the leadership role. Still, he was the one that got to the tomb first because he was the one that arrived at the resurrected faith first because his love was greater. Yeah. The mysticism was greater.
And yet, right, he stays out of the tomb until Peter arrives.
Right.
So there's this interplay between authority, which is important, and the sort of individual relationship with Christ, which is important.
Right.
And
the interior life.
It's not as usual with Catholics. It's not one. Right. It's both and. It's everything.
Yeah. I've been reading this book that a very dear friend wrote about this Franciscan friar by the name of Savonarola. Don't know if you've heard of this guy. So back in the 1400s in Florence, there was widespread corruption because it was Italy in the 1400s. Right. And
Italy any time.
Yeah, Italy at any point. And, and he was a revolutionary in the fact that he actually reached out to women. Most of the reform efforts were always aimed at men, and women's role was just be in the home and be quiet and do nothing, right? But he actually reached out to women, and one of his big things was called the bonfire of vanities, which you may have heard of. Yeah, which he would encourage women to bring their cosmetics and their mirrors and stuff, and basically have a big bonfire where they're throwing all of their vanities aside and just living for Christ alone. And it was this revolutionary new thing, and so the Vatican started to persecute him. Sure. And he ended up being called in front of the Inquisition, and he ended up being burnt at the stake. Sadly, although I think he was, later exonerated, and certainly actually a very holy man, wasn't trying to break from Rome or anything. But it's the idea of that he was almost avant-garde, ahead of his time, which was so controversial in Rome. That eventually, by the way, I guess he was right.
Yeah, about that.
So yeah, even if you have a new spiritual insight, make sure that your bishop
keep it quiet.
Make sure your bishop is in favor of it. Yeah, exactly.
Don't ruin anybody's.
Otherwise, you could get burnt at the stake.
Yeah, you want that.
It's a real danger here around in these parts.
It's the hazard of the job.
Hazard of the job. Yeah. Exactly. So we got a few more great feast days coming up there. Feast of Mary, the Mother of God.
Yes, unless for some reason you're in America and it's a Monday or Saturday, in which case just take it easy.
Well, not a holy day of obligation, but still a feast.
It's still unclear to me why we came up with that. Like what they are. Do you know anything about why that is?
Heaven forbid we make Catholics go to Mass 2 days in a row.
Except for
Christmas.
Right. Like literally what's good. Any time that feast day is on a Monday, you have to go to Mass 2 days in a row the week prior because Christmas Day is after the fourth Sunday of Advent.
Right. So this is a public service announcement to all of our listeners. Yes. You must go to Mass twice.
No, you get to go to Mass twice.
You get to go to Mass.
Because why would you spend Advent preparing for Christmas and then skip the last quarter of that preparation? Like it's the fourth Sunday of Advent. It's only four Sundays of Advent.
I know. If you're a football team and you only show up for 3 quarters,
right. Like if you go from the priest vestments go from pink to white, you missed something very important going on. You know what I mean? You missed the whole thing that and you did. Carry you. The prayers for Advent are beautiful. The
oh my gosh,
Advent 2 preface is gorgeous.
It is.
The collect is very beautiful. It's basically the Angelus. So go. So the gospel reading is very good. As an aside, I only know this because I was taking an elective to learn how to chant the Mass, and we had to, for my final, he signed us a Sunday, and mine was the fourth Sunday of Advent.
Oh, nice. So okay, so you really got to know the text.
So actually, have the text in my head. So it's beautiful. Go. Don't miss it because I don't know what,
Well, here's why they would miss it, because when I used to, when I lived in Stanford, I celebrated Christmas Eve Mass at a nursing home before the 4 o'clock. So it was a 2 p.m. Mass. And there were maybe 30 nursing home residents and about 90 others who decided it was the earliest Mass in town for their Christmas Eve. So they went to that Mass instead. And I'm worried that people are going to go to the 11:30 Mass here and think that counts for Christmas.
Okay, but say the whole Christmas Eve. Right? So 11 a.m. doesn't count
but Christmas Eve is technically the whole day, right?
Christmas Eve lives in our hearts.
Anyway, public service announcement. You must go. You have the opportunity, the joy.
Yes, the mandatory opportunity to go.
The mandatory opportunity, yes. Exactly. You're voluntold.
Yep.
But anyway, Feast of Mary, the Mother of God. So did you know that before Second Vatican Council, it had a different name?
Nope.
It was called the Feast of the Circumcision of our Lord.
Cool.
And I think for obvious reasons, I'm glad it changed.
What are those obvious reasons? Just for those who don't see them, obviously.
There's some homilies you just don't want to give. And the meaning of circumcision is not one that is particularly family friendly.
These cowardly priests, I tell you.
I know, right? I know.
Don't want to preach circumcision.
Vatican II priest.
That's right. Yeah, it's all you Vatican II priests. One priest circumcision.
But I love how you start off the new year by consecrating it to Our Lady.
Yeah.
That is also pretty important.
Yeah, and it's a good test. It's like, okay, I may not get martyred, but I do have to get up for Mass New Year's Day after staying up late New Year's Eve. So, you know.
Do you stay up till midnight?
No, absolutely not, if I can avoid it.
Yeah, me neither. I think I'll be bed at 9 p.m.
I mean, I'm an old man, you know? And so I try to go to
At
early.
26?
25.
25?
So, you know, I try to be in bed by like 9:30.
Have you had a quarter life crisis yet?
I guess I would have been 8, right? 16, 24. Yeah, I would have been about 8 and a quarter, 8 and a half.
No. You're at your quarter life now. Like,
Oh, well, we don't know that, but
no, I mean, assuming you live to
maybe.
100, yeah, it could have been 5 years ago. I don't know.
Frankly, quarter life crisis seems ambitious for me. Maybe to 100 seems highly unlikely, but you know,
Who knows? You take good care of yourself.
Yeah.
God's will be done.
Yes. I remember what was being said. Do you remember
Something about going to sleep early on to prepare yourself for
Christmas? Yeah, New Year's Eve is. I don't get it. It's one of those holidays. I think it's a bit like Valentine's Day for those who are not celibate. Like you feel pressure to have plans and have fun on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
I don't typically have plans or fun on New Year's Eve, and it's fine. You move on.
So this year Valentine's Day falls on Ash Wednesday.
Perfect.
So I'm going
that'll
to
show 'em.
I'm going to give Valentine's hearts to say, remember your dust, and unto dust you shall return.
Yeah, made out of ash. They've taken it and just collapsed into their hand. You know, just dissolve in their hands.
Exactly. Or may just make a heart on someone's forehead with ashes.
Don't forget to fast on your date.
Exactly. Bread and water, baby.
That's it. Yeah, that's
Bread and
right.
water restaurants. They
That's it.
should have a special, you know.
That's it.
But yeah, anyway, so Feast of Mary, the Mother of God, love that one. And then we come up with the Epiphany.
Yes. Which
So-
is the end of the Christmas season.
No.
I've heard so many different options.
No.
What's your answer to this?
Well, the actual answer is the baptism of our Lord.
Okay, all right, I'll take it.
Yeah.
It's one of those. It is like a weird date because you try to look it up. I've looked into every year, and I never seem to retain the information. But it's also never just like as easy as reading a single article. Like,
Right.
There's a lot of debate over this.
Because some people celebrate it on January 6th. Some people celebrate on the Sunday closest to January 6th. Liturgically, it's the Sunday closest to January 6th. So this year, I think it's January 8th.
The Sunday
It's
closes
Epiphany.
January 6th. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So Christmas season kind of gets the short shrift. Like in, all the way back in before the Second Vatican Council, Christmas season went all the way to the Feast of the Presentation of February 2nd.
Right, I think that's part of the confusion. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was kind of a clearer ending of that. It's 40 days.
Yeah.
I don't know. Should we extend Christmas season? Not that we have any power to do so, but
No, 40 days is like. I mean, I know this is not like strictly speaking true, but it seems to be kind of a penitential number in our lives.
yeah, it's the number of testing and purification.
Yeah, so it seems kind of silly to make the Christmas season is not a penitential season.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the symbolism seems a little mixed on that.
But it's shorter than, like, the Christmas season is shorter than Advent, which I think is too bad.
Yeah, but it's weird too because Advent's not strictly. It's not just a season of penance. Like it is, but it's more than that. It's not Lent.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
the whole. I just
Or just, to prepare for something, and something is shorter than what we're preparing for.
And there's still like, okay, I'm gonna. This is on the fly, so just ignore the heresies that no doubt are about to come forward. But like,
I'll correct them all.
So like in Lent, right, we have this long fast, and then we have this tremendous victory
Yes.
that we celebrate for just like for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. The longest, I think, is that no, I guess the second longest probably is liturgical season would be.
Well, ordinary time.
Right. That's
So-
what makes Easter second longest liturgical season.
Yeah, 50 days of Easter.
Right. So, but if you take the year as it is, the victory is not won on Christmas, right? And so there's something to be said of like, all right, we're preparing. All right, Jesus is here. We're celebrating. All right, now there's like a work to do though. Like he's off in Egypt. He and the Holy Family are off in Egypt. Like we're moving to ordinary time. We're celebrating his life. And so there's something to be said about the victory is not won, and the brevity of the Christmas season kind of seems to respect that reality that there is still the salvific mission to accomplish.
Yeah.
While still celebrating the tremendous fact of the incarnation, which I often think kind of gets short shrift in our thinking because I think we tend to focus on the resurrection, which is obviously the crowning jewel of our faith, right? And it's of the most importance. But the incarnation just changes everything too. I mean, it's like I don't think we like really grapple with the ways in which the incarnation changes the reality of humanity.
I feel like maybe because it was more hotly debated in the early church, the incarnation was emphasized in the early church, and then the medievals kind of shifted more towards the passion and death and resurrection. And I mean, it was very hotly debated because a lot of people thought, well, maybe Jesus was just an apparition, like the angels. Maybe he didn't really take on flesh, or maybe he was not truly God. Right? That was the Arian heresy, and so I think they had to defend the incarnation in a really powerful way.
I mean, but then you think it lost emphasis over the years, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, because of the commercialization of Christmas, it's lost some emphasis, which I think it would be almost impossible to really commercialize Easter. You know, you got the Easter Bunny, okay, but I mean,
Yeah.
people don't listen to Easter songs that are secular, right? I mean, people listen lots.
I mean, people don't listen to Easter songs who are religious, but
Right. That's so. Some of you know I'm a musician, and I'm actually working on a new album coming out summer of 2024.
nice.
But I do hope. I will. Everyone's been like, you need to make a Christmas album. You need to make a Christmas album. I'm like, no, I'm going to make an Easter album.
Yeah.
Lent and Easter songs, dirges, and then rejoicing.
Perfect.
Because you got to have something to listen to during
Yeah.
Easter.
No doubt. No, I mean, Christmas music, like the Christmas hymns, Christmas chants really are tremendous. Just finished finals, and I like to have something going on that I'm listening to, but I can't do podcasts while I'm studying because I won't study anything. So
Yeah.
I found a Spotify album of Christmas chant and hymns. It's amazing how beautiful so much of the music around this time of year.
Yeah, I have to say, my "Hark the Herald Angels Sing" is for me so moving.
O Come, O Come, Emmanuel is still my favorite. I think my favorite hymn of all time.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
It's beautiful in both languages. The two languages, Latin and English. And this morning in morning prayer, we sang the second, third, and fourth verses of Come, Come, Emmanuel. It's just beautiful. Everybody knows that hymn. It's a very easy melody to follow, and so everyone's just singing really loudly. It's just so beautiful.
And you got to, even in the 6th and 7th verse, which no one ever sings, you got to get down there and you get some really good stuff.
Yeah. I just, I mean, look, that would be unjust to make me sit through 7 verses of a hymn during morning prayer.
No, but no,
I did
like,
the road. You know what I mean?
It's
But
it's
you're
the
right.
4th day. You're like, all right, we're singing verses 6 and 7 today.
Yeah. Well, the breviary doesn't give you that many options for hymns, and I know obviously all of our listeners who pray the breviary sing a hymn every time they pray an hour because that's what the church wants you to do. So it doesn't give that many options though. So you should be moving through Come, Come, Emmanuel in both English and Latin because it's there.
Yeah,
that's one of the 3 options.
But I also don't think you're required to use those hymns. You can use other hymns.
Of course not. Yeah.
So,
no. And
but
while you're singing the required hymn, you're not required to use those hymns.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm not a singer when it comes to by myself in the church, but that's okay. Nevertheless, yeah, I mean, I love that hymn. But Hark the Herald Angels Sing to me has always been my go-to because like veiled in flesh, the Godhead see, hail the incarnate deity.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
Like, what a line, It makes you really realize, if you think about the meaning of the season.
Sure.
Because Christmas, one of the reasons I've never been a huge fan of Christmas is the tendency towards sentimentality.
Yeah, you're a pretty unsentimental person.
I'm a very unsentimental person, yeah. Because I want something richer than just feelings, right? And when you meditate on the real mystery of the incarnation, it's deeper than feelings. It's the most profound act of love.
Vibes.
It's vibes.
Deeper than feelings, it's vibe.
Yes. Movements of the soul.
New heresy. The sun is a vibe.
The sun is a vibe. Yeah, maybe in California. I don't know. Not here in Connecticut.
The other one, and this is maybe a little hokey, I don't know, is We Three Kings. I don't know if that's if people like that hymn or not.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
I think it's you're kind of listening to like the kids sing it during the Christmas concert or whatever, but it really is beautiful. And like the 4th verse, right?
Myrrh is mine, it's bitter perfume. That's never gets sung.
Yeah. Sorrowing, sighing, bleeding, dying, still in the stone cold tomb.
Yeah.
Gee whiz. But then it moves into this very triumphant, glorious now, behold him arise, King God and sacrifice.
Yeah.
Earth, heaven, that's beautiful.
That's why you got to do all 5 verses of all these hymns. Yeah. Or like, did you know?
Yes.
What was? Oh gosh, what child is this? Everyone goes right to the refrain, right? I can't remember it.
Yeah, right.
But there's actually a second refrain that's never sung. Nail, spear shall pierce him through. The Son of God died for me and you, or something like that. And it's actually about the crucifixion, which in the early church, that was always the connection, right? Christ took on flesh so that he would die. That was St. Anselm wrote a whole book on that.
Yeah.
Cur Deus Homo. Spent 700 pages trying to figure out why did God become man? And the answer was to die.
Yeah. Yeah, because that which is not assumed is not saved.
Right. He needed to offer that as a sacrifice on the cross. And it's, it's a painful reality, but it's also something that, you look forward to the triumph at the end.
Yeah.
So the question is, why are you born? Why did you take flesh? And why did God give you a body? Well, to die so that you can rise. Right. So it can reign with him forever, glory in heaven. That's our hope. Well, I hope you all have a very merry, jolly, happy, wonderful Christmas.
On that note, yeah.
On that note,
Merry Christmas, go die.
Go die and go rise with Christ, indeed. Daily. Anyway, you can find us on Veritas Catholic Network, 1350 AM, and wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in next time. God bless.